YouTube's taking longer than usual. Well, there it is. YouTube's on. Well, there it is. YouTube's on.
1 minute until showtime.
Hey everybody on video, thanks for joining us. Blog Talk will start in less than a minute.
Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
Everybody, good evening to everyone, and welcome to Living Objectivism. I think we're on episode 134. I get tired just saying that number. I've done so many of these, and so many of the radical capitalists. I think we're up to 130 on those, and then we're launching new types of podcasts as well. So lots going on in the world of the Yaron Brook show. But thank you all for being here, and thank you all for being engaged. All right, today I want to go a little bit back to basics, if you will. Hopefully I won't bore anybody, and hopefully you can all stay with me. I have a feeling I'm going to touch a few raw nerves, so maybe we'll get some good questions. Of course, you can call in anytime, 347-324-3075. But let me get going a little bit on the topic, at least the topic for the first few segments, and before you call in. And I have a feeling there'll be callers after a while. I want to talk a little bit about what objectivism is and what it isn't. And oh, by the way, we got new sound, so new sound equipment. So thank you, Chris McGraw, for helping me and for recommending some equipment. But I now have a preamp connected to my mic, and sound should be much better. Volume should be much better, particularly when I speak softly. I think that's when it'll make a big difference. I think when I yell, it doesn't really matter that much. But I think you'll get less variation in sound from speaking softly to yelling. So thanks, Chris. I really appreciate the help. All right, so what is objectivism? What is objectivism, and why is it important? And I also want to ask a question. Are you an objectivist? Am I an objectivist? Who's an objectivist? That's another question we can ask. But let's start with what is objectivism. And the simple answer to what is objectivism, and I think the correct answer to what is objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Objectivism is the philosophy that Ayn Rand discovered, defined, articulated in her writing. Primarily in the Fountainhead. The Fountainhead has some of the elements of objectivism, much more so and more comprehensively so in Atlas Shrugged, but really as articulated by Ayn Rand in her nonfiction. So it's everything Ayn Rand wrote in philosophy, and I emphasize in philosophy because not everything Ayn Rand wrote is in philosophy. Everything Ayn Rand wrote in philosophy, everything Ayn Rand approved of that other people wrote in philosophy. So whether it's Leonard Peikoff's The Ominous Parallels, which he helped edit, or Nathaniel Brandon's The Psychology of Self-Esteem, which he helped edit, although, again, that's psychology, so it's not philosophy. Whether it is all the essays various people wrote in the different anthologies that she published over the many years. Objectivism is the philosophy that Ayn Rand discovered, that Ayn Rand articulated, that Ayn Rand wrote and spoke about. It is her philosophy. It is her philosophy. So objectivism is Ayn Rand's philosophy. That's what it is. And I want to differentiate it here from, some of you might be surprised by this, but from the truth. It might turn out that objectivism is the truth, or at least in everything she says is true in philosophy. That might turn out. It might turn out that she made some errors, and some of what she said turns out to be not true, or when the context is broadened 100 years from now, when we have more knowledge, maybe people understand things differently, and the truth will be different. Will those new truths to be discovered in the future, either that she didn't talk about on topics she didn't discuss, or as corrections to things she did say, will those truths be objectivism? No, they will not. They will be something else. They will be whatever name we want to give it, but it won't be objectivism. Objectivism is the philosophy of Ayn Rand. It is what Ayn Rand wrote and spoke and discovered and articulated. That's what it is. It is not equal to the truth. Now, I think it's true because, I mean, I'm not a philosopher, and to the best of my understanding, everything she wrote in philosophy is true. But I'm completely open to the notion that Greg Salamiri or Ankar or somebody comes to me and says, look, here, there's a mistake here. Here's a better way of doing it, or here's a completely different way of doing it. I mean, it's possible. They haven't done it yet. To me at least, but it's completely possible. But I'm even more open to the idea that 50 years from now, 100 years from now, some genius of that era says, yeah, a lot of what Ayn Rand said is true. Maybe even 95, 99% of it is true. But here's some modifications. Here's some reformulations. And here's definitely what objectivism, certainly what the philosophy needs, is expansion. I mean, Ayn Rand wrote Introduction to Epistemology, not the complete epistemology. So there's a lot of work to be done, but that work will not be objectivism. Objectivism is what Ayn Rand formulated. That's it. I mean, and everybody who wrote, in a sense, under her name. That is it. So I think, and this will be relevant to a point I make in a little while about are you an objectivist? I think that's really important. As individuals, what we should be is truth seekers. And I studied objectivism and study objectivism because I believe it's the truth, because everything's consistent, everything integrates, everything makes sense to me. And to the best of my knowledge and ability and comprehension, objectivism is true. But the essential motivation is the seeking of truth, not the joining of a cult or the joining of a movement, or the trying to make sure that I am a good objectivist and I know all the latest objectivist jargon, or that I know that I am, or that somebody else is an objectivist. That is not a motivation. It's not a proper motivation. That would be completely second-handed. Your motivation should be to try to figure out for yourself, in a first-handed manner, what the truth is. And there are parts of the objectivist philosophy that I've studied that I can't say I really know. I couldn't teach it. I don't consider stuff to be that I know unless I can teach it, right? And there are vast parts of the metaphysics and epistemology and even the ethics, really, that I don't think I could teach. And I could probably go and study it and really integrate it and think about it and really spend the time. And I'm sure much of it I could get to the point where I could teach. But it's only, for me at least, I'm not using it as a standard for you, because I consider myself an intellectual. So for an intellectual to say, I really know this stuff, means you should be able to teach it. So for you, you're going to have your own standards, but that is my standard for knowledge. So I think this, the what is objectivism is really crucial. And this leads to this big controversy out there, which I think is an absurd controversy, a ridiculous controversy, a stupid controversy, of this idea of open versus closed system. Is objectivism an open system, or is objectivism a closed system? I mean, it's a stupid question, because there's a sense in which it's open, the sense in which it's closed. And what's important is it objectivism? And beyond that, what is truth? That's what's important. It's important. What is objectivism, in a sense that you want to describe what Ayn Rand considered objectivism, what Ayn Rand articulated and described. All right, so the idea, let me quickly go through this open and closed stuff. The idea that objectivism is an open system is the idea that there's some core principles in objectivism, and you accept those, and that makes you, I guess, an adherent to objectivism. And then if you disagree with certain aspects of what Ayn Rand wrote, or more importantly, if you add some stuff, if you decide instead of 7 virtues, there are actually 9, or if you don't agree with a certain formulation and you adopt a completely different formulation, all of that is fine, right? All of that you can do. There's nothing wrong with that. And in that sense, objectivism is open. The sense in which it's closed is you can't call that objectivism. You can't call that objectivism. That is not objectivism. That's your musings based on objectivism, maybe. It's your best understanding, maybe, of objectivism, maybe, but it's something else. It's you. And that's, who cares? Why is that important? I mean, we only care in a sense of having clarity about who's responsible for what. You're responsible for your thoughts. You're responsible for your ideas. You're responsible for your discoveries. You're responsible for whether your ideas are true or not. And Ayn Rand is, in a sense, responsible for hers. For you to embrace, to use Ayn Rand in order to give your ideas the aura of legitimacy or the aura of a great mind like Ayn Rand, that is just plain fraud. That's plain thievery, right? So, I mean, go and discover new virtues. I mean, go and articulate new ideas in epistemology. I mean, that's great. Discover truth. Go out there and discover truth. That's what, if you're a thinker, if you're an intellectual, that's your responsibility. But don't call it objectivism unless it's what Ayn Rand said. Call it Yaron's, application of his best understanding of Ayn Rand's ideas. But these shows that I do, these podcasts, are not objectivism. They're Yaron's application to the best of his ability of Ayn Rand's ideas. And they're my responsibility. And anything I say here that's wrong is on me, not on her. And anything I say here that's right, that is not hers, that it's not her directly, I get some credit for. Now, because it's based on her ideas, she gets a lot of the credit too. But she doesn't get her name associated with it, because she might turn around and say, and very likely would turn around and say, Yaron, you're full of it. You're wrong. Yaron, you're wrong. About a lot of things, because she was a genius and I'm not. So objectivism is a closed system in the sense that only what Ayn Rand discovered and wrote about and articulated is objectivism. It's open in the sense that people can go out there and discover new discoveries, but then don't call it objectivism. That's the name for Ayn Rand's philosophy. All right, we're going to take a short break, and when I come back, I want to talk about being an objectivist, and we also have a few callers.
Ayn Rand held that art is an indispensable need of human life, an irreplaceable form of spiritual refueling. In the course 8 Great Plays, available at ARI Campus, Leonard Peikoff selects 8 masterpieces of world literature and analyzes them as great works of drama and as works that convey philosophies of life. After completing this course, you will better understand how to reach a full, objective evaluation of an artwork and how to grasp, evaluate, and enjoy the values that great literature offers. Visit ARI Campus at campus.aynrand.org today and enroll in 8 Great Plays.
All right, we're back, and we've got a caller. Let's take this caller. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this? Hello?
Hello?
Yep, I can hear you. Go ahead.
Hi.
Hey.
Can you hear me? This is Ronald.
Yes, I can. Let me increase your volume a little bit. Try now?
Okay.
Yeah, I can hear you better now. Okay, go ahead.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Just want to say, love your show. Just found you recently, and I told my wife she needs to get me all your books for Christmas.
Wonderful. Have you already read Ayn Rand?
I've started to read some of Atlas Shrugged, and I bought Leonard Peikoff's book, Objectivism.
Oh, right. You're going right for the heart of the content. That's great. I mean, also look for books like Virtue of Selfishness and Capitalism, Not Known Ideal. There was a shorter essays and I wouldn't say easy to digest, but you know, they're great essays that'll really get you into the heart of what objectivism really is all about.
Awesome. Well, my question for you is I want to hear your take on patents and copyrights.
Right.
I tried to look up what Rand said about them. It didn't seem like too much, and she also kind of lived in an age where we didn't have the technology that we have now with all the software and all the patent trolls out there now. So I was just wondering, like, how can an idea be property that a government should protect?
Well, I mean, an idea isn't in and of itself. The idea is not property. Its manifestation in reality is property. And if you're using a particular idea to create stuff, then that stuff is property that the government has, that the government gets to decide. So let me refer you to an article, and also to a podcast I did not that long ago with Adam Mossoff. So there's a podcast, and if you drop me an email or something at yaron@yaronbrookshow.com, I'll refer you to Adam Mossoff, because Adam Mossoff has some of the best arguments about property rights and intellectual property rights. I mean, the shortcut is I'm a huge supporter of intellectual property rights. I think intellectual property rights, in a sense, are no different than regular property rights. You have put your idea into making something. The idea is protected in that sense that it is part of the something you have created. And that something is what is being protected. Your revenue stream off of the book, your revenue stream off of the drug, and that protection, the protection of your property right over the drug, over the book, over the novel, is what is being protected. So I absolutely think, and I don't think you could have a advanced technological civilization without pretty rigorous intellectual property rights and clear definition of those. But again, I know that's not a full answer, and I would, if you email me, I will send you some links to a more comprehensive answer to that. And I was going to refer you to Ayn Rand. So Ayn Rand has a whole essay about it in Capitalism, Not Known Ideal. It's on patents and copyright. So I think it'll address your issue directly. All right?
All right.
Thanks. Okay. Those of you calling in, if you want to actually ask a question, you have to press 1 before I can see that you want to ask a question. So if you're serious about asking a question, not just calling in to listen to the show, then, oh, there you go. I thought so. I thought he'd want a question. Let me just make a point, and then I'll take your question if you don't mind. So stay online. I'll get to you, I promise. But let me. It looks like a London phone number. But let me make a point, and then we'll talk about that. So we talked a little bit about what is objectivism, right? We talked about what is objectivism, and that objectivism is Ayn Rand's philosophy. Well, the question then is, who is an objectivist? And what does being an objectivist mean? And should one strive to be an objectivist? And do we want the whole world to become objectivists? Is that what motivates me, for example, as somebody who's out there trying to apply objectivism, talking to people, trying to convince them about ideas? What am I trying to do, right? What am I trying to do? Am I trying to turn people into objectivists? And my answer is no, right? And I don't really think too much about who exactly is an objectivist and who is not. There's some areas in which it's relevant. For example, it's important, given the Ayn Rand Institute, that the intellectuals associated with the Ayn Rand Institute be objectivists. That is, that they have a good, solid understanding of the philosophy, that they agree with it, and that they can articulate certain elements of it. Again, I don't think anybody is good at articulating every single aspect of the philosophy. I mean, I'm not great on intellectual property rights. I keep working on it, and one of these days I'll get it down. But in the realm of kind of the political, which I am a semi-expert in, that's probably one of the weakest areas, right? I'm not an expert in teaching the epistemology. I'm not an expert in teaching a lot of this stuff. But I have a good understanding of the philosophy. I can teach the things that I can teach well. I can articulate them well. I can integrate them into the rest of the philosophy to the best of my ability. And I think for the most part, I'm consistent with Ayn Rand's ideas, and therefore I consider myself an objectivist intellectual. But what I'm trying to do out there is trying to expose people to the truth, trying to convince people to think about the truth as I see it. Now, again, I think objectivism is the truth, but a lot of what I say, Ayn Rand didn't comment on. A lot of what I say is application. It's not objectivism per se. And what I'm trying to do is, to the best of my ability, convince people of the truth. And what you should be is a seeker of truth. Now, to the extent that you think Ayn Rand is true, that objectivism is true, study objectivism. But when I look at people, when I evaluate people, when I think about whether somebody's a good person or a bad person, or my attitude towards people, I don't think of it just in terms of, are they objectivists or not? I think in terms of a broad spectrum of what are their virtues. And, and I've noticed this among objectivists. They go, are they consistently philosophical? What's their philosophy like? Or what is their politics, which is 100 times even worse than what is their philosophy? What is their politics? And I was watching this TV show and yesterday night, and I just remembered this. And one of the characters says, "I can't sleep with a Tory. I could never sleep with a Tory." And that's it. Like, it's politics, right? If you're a Tory, I can't sleep with you. It's a British show. I'll mention it. I'll mention it at the Ed today, because it's one of my personal favorite all-time comedies. I think it's maybe one of the funniest shows I've ever watched in my life, and I'll mention it at the end of the show today. But so people go straight to the politics. Oh, God, he's a lefty. I can't have anything to do with a lefty. I can't sleep with a lefty. I can't talk to a leftist. I can't be friends with a leftist. I can't associate. I can't do anything. Leftist, by definition, bad, evil, no good. Or he's religious. Therefore, whoa, that's irrational. Well, we know faith and reason are opposites. And therefore, he's useless. I don't want to have anything to do with this person. Nothing, zero. Goodbye. That's it. I mean, that's ridiculous to evaluate people like that. Right? It's ridiculous to evaluate people like that. People, are far more complex than just their politics. And even their philosophy could be a mixture of a lot of things. I mean, the way to evaluate people is by their character. It's the way you evaluate employees. You wouldn't evaluate employees based on their politics. You wouldn't evaluate employees you evaluate based on their character and based on the specific skills that they have to do the particular job. I would evaluate people based on their character. I evaluate people based on their character and based on the particular values that we share or don't share, and the context in which I have a relationship with them. The context in which I'm considering a relationship with them. So I admire a lot of people who are leftists. You know this. I admire many of the entrepreneurs in Silicon Valley, even though they're leftists, because they're incredibly productive, and I benefit enormously from what they do with their lives. And to not admire them, I think would be ungrateful and would represent a massive injustice. They are a manifestation of an important virtue that I believe in, that my life is tied up in, which is productiveness and at least in a realm of their lives, reason. How can I hate people who are unbelievably productive and who use their minds? Everybody uses their minds in order to produce. All producers, really, real producers use their minds. But here are people who, it's so obvious, it's so explicit, because technology is so much, innovation is so much a product of human reason, of thinking, of thinking deeply, of thinking outside of the box, of using logic. How can you not admire that? And yeah, you can criticize their politics, and you can say, I'd rather not be stuck with them in a small democracy where they get to vote, right? But that's, although I would like to be stuck with them, because, hey, my desert island's going to have the coolest stuff in the world. Because these people are so logical and smart and so productive. So, to me, whether somebody is an objectivist or is not an objectivist is not crucial. What's crucial is, are they a good person or are they not? In the context of which I want to have a relationship with. And you should think of it. And you should think of your friends. And what is the context? Now, if I was going to live with somebody, I don't think I could live with somebody. I don't think I could marry somebody and live with them for the rest of my life if they weren't an objectivist, right? That is, if they did not adhere to the basic principles of objectivism and agree to the best of their understanding with the philosophy. I couldn't, because I'm a professional intellectual. This is what I do. It would be impossible for me to live with somebody who was religious or live with somebody who had a completely different philosophy. But that doesn't mean that's true of all of you. It depends on the importance of the ideas have in your lives and how in your particular life, and how much it consumes your life, how much of your time, how much of your energy, how much of your effort, how much of your values are tied up with objectivism. All right. Whoops, the caller just disappeared. I was just going to go to you. So if you want to call back, I will take your call. So I apologize. I apologize. And again, if you have questions, I see on the chats and on Facebook and stuff, people have questions. Call in. It's hard for me to read all the questions on YouTube. The questions. Call in. It's 347-324-3075. 347-324-3075, and then press the 1 button. All right, let's take this call. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Yes, I can.
Oh, wonderful. This is Chris from Cambridge, from the UK.
Hey, great.
I'm actually from Romania, and
okay.
I have a question that it deals less with objectivism, but it deals more with capitalism and the welfare state. I'm not sure if it's right for this podcast.
Go ahead.
Would it be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So, in my country, and I see that this is generally true in most of Europe, there haven't been really libertarian parties. So, yeah, right-wing, there are some right-wing parties. Usually, left parties are in power, and the opposition is usually right-wing, but right-wing or authoritarian parties.
Yes.
And I haven't really seen a lot, at least to have any significance, any right-wing libertarian parties.
Well,
do you think that
in
this time, if there were any parties, I don't know, any new parties, would they have any success? I mean,
no.
Do you see the right-wing libertarian party to actually come to power in a state and maybe show
what is possible?
Success that what's possible exactly?
Yeah, let me say a few things about this, and since we're talking about objectivism, let me integrate it into the conversation I had about objectivism. So first, objectivism is not libertarianism. So objectivism is not libertarianism. Libertarianism is a vague, big tent, not clearly defined political ideology. Objectivism is a philosophy, clearly defined, clearly articulated, that actually contradicts some of the ideas within the big tent that calls itself libertarian. So I don't consider myself a libertarian, and I don't support libertarian political parties because some libertarian political parties are anarchist, and I think anarchism is worse than many certainly soft authoritarian regimes or many simple, straightforward left-right, what we kind of politics of today. So, I would first differentiate objectivism from libertarianism, and we can get into a bigger discussion about what that means if you really want to. But let me also add this: it was that objectivism is not left or right either, and I don't like the whole left or right spectrum as defining politics, because I think there's no real difference between left and right. I think both the left and right have become, and maybe always have been, statist. And when they are more consistent to their ideology, they become more authoritarian. Left authoritarian meaning socialism, which means a kind of a certain looseness in terms of certain social practices, maybe a loose view of sex or who can marry who, or things like that. But then an authoritarianism when it comes to economics, and authoritarianism when it comes to speech these days, right? And then on the right, what you get is more of a fascist type, which is very similar to socialism. The left and right at the end of the day are not that different, but they're still distinct. So the right tends to be more religious, more concerned about what you do in your bedroom and what your social, what happens socially with you, the world of the spirit, if you will, the world of values. And they're a little looser on economics, but not that much looser. They tend to They don't want to own the means of production. They just want to regulate the means of production. But at the end of the day, the left and the right, particularly as they take themselves more seriously, are more and more authoritarian. And I don't like to really associate or affiliate myself or the way I think about the world with either one of them. So I wouldn't say right, a free market right or something like that. I would just say what we're missing in the world today are political parties that respect the individual and are pro-free markets. And that's neither the left nor right. Right?
Yeah.
And
what I wanted to say is that sorry, go on.
Yeah, so I would add to that, and that there are no such political parties in the world today that I know of. I mean, there are no, I'm sure there are, but there are none that are successful. There are none that are winning. And I don't think there are any that can win. That is, if there was such a political party today in the United States, it would lose. If there was such a political party in the UK, it would lose. So I don't think there's any political party today on the map that is consistently, or even, or put it, the political parties might exist, but the people are not ready to vote for anybody who's consistently pro-individual rights, that's consistently pro-free markets. It just, the world is not ready for that. The culture is not ready for that. They don't hold the philosophy, the fundamental ideas that would make voting for such a political party possible. And until they hold those ideas, that won't happen. And so therefore you have kind of a chicken and egg. You're not going to be able to show the world what it looks like until they have a philosophy that already believes in it and they're willing to vote for it. And then they don't need to be shown because they already believe it. It'll just reconfirm what they already know. And indeed, to some extent, let me just finish this one point and then I'll let you. And then to some extent, you don't need to be shown, because throughout history, to the extent that free markets are being practiced, to the extent that we've protected individual rights and respected individual rights, to that extent, we've succeeded phenomenally. Just unbelievably, the United States in the 19th century, Hong Kong in the 20th century, and you could go on and on. So I don't think what's missing from the world are examples or political parties. What's missing from the world is a philosophy of individual rights, a philosophy of individualism, and a culture of individual rights and individualism that would make then it possible for such a political party to win. All right, let me take a quick break. Just hold on, and then I'm gonna let you respond. But I need to take this break. All right. Thanks.
Okay.
Stay on the line.
2017 marks the 60th anniversary of Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. 12 years in the writing, it is Ayn Rand's masterwork. Despite being published 6 decades ago, the novel continues to gain recognition and profoundly influence business leaders, thought leaders, and a growing number of political leaders. Its presence in today's culture cannot be denied. The fascination with Atlas Shrugged persists because it grapples with the fundamental questions of human existence and presents radically new answers. Whether you're an adoring fan who wants to add this new addition to your personal library, or someone who wants to read the book for the first time to see what all the fuss is about, pick up your copy of Atlas Shrugged today. An updated cover for the mass market edition of the novel recently hit stores. Check it out. You can order your copy today on Amazon.
All right, go ahead. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for waiting. So, but go ahead. You had a comment.
So when I mentioned left and right, I didn't use sort of the layman terms of left and right. I used strictly like on a political compass kind of. So
yeah, I agree.
Left and right in an economic way.
Yeah, but it's not an economic way, because you even said that the right in Romania, and this is true of the right pretty much everywhere, is somewhat authoritarian. So that's not free. That's not free from an economic perspective.
Well, it's certainly it's viewed as a right wing.
I know.
A right wing.
I know, but it's not in reality. So whenever these right-wing political parties get into power, they never actually embrace capitalism. because what they're really about is power. What they're really about is control. So so what I want us to try to get away from is the idea that the right is for economic liberty and the left is against economic liberty. In my view, they're both against liberty, economic and otherwise, and they just have different ways to manifest it. And what we should be are the party, in a sense, a third dimension, which is the advocates for real economic liberty. Are you there?
For me, I can also use, instead of left and right hand, I could use collectivism and individualism.
Yes, and then I would say there are no individualistic parties out there. So, there's no individualistic party in Romania, political party in Romania, and there's none in the United States.
Well, that's true, but...
so I agree with you that the real way to look at it is individualism versus collectivism, and what we want is an individualistic political party.
Well, funny, you said in the beginning in our call that what you thought about libertarians and anarchists. I'm a anarcho-capitalist, but I don't actually believe that this is possible now or in the next century. I don't think so. But I would like to see a minimal state. So so would I.
But keep listening to my show. Keep listening to my show, and I'm not a minarchist. I don't like that whole terminology. Keep listening to my show, and hopefully I can make you into a limited government, pro-individual rights capitalist, and drop the anarchism, because the anarchism is destructive. It's not just neutral. In my view, it's destructive. But
these are just labels for me.
Well, but they're labels that represent ideas.
Individualism.
They represent ideas, and therefore they represent real truths and ultimately people's actions. All right.
Well, I've heard your talks, and I've agreed with everything you've said. Well,
wonderful.
Thanks,
Wonderful.
patterns.
Wonderful.
But I really love your show, and it's great. Keep doing what you're doing, all right?
Thanks. I will. Thanks. Really appreciate you calling. Thanks for listening. It's great to know somebody is listening from Cambridge, England. Oh, and I didn't ask you if you're studying there, but I assume you're going to school. But anyway, we'll talk another time, I guess. All right, we got some more callers. We've got a bunch of callers now. All right. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, you're on the show.
Hi, Yaron. It's Gail.
Hey, Gail.
I'm Freedom Breeze on the chat.
Okay.
And a big fan, and I'm a longtime follower. And I sure understand what you're saying when you say that people can't fit into a box, like to try to be an objectivist. It's just not like any other. I don't know what people call it, but following. It's just basically, I think what you mean is that people need to think, use their ideas and think and compare and use comparative reasoning to try and understand the truth.
Yes. Yes, and they have to be, if they're going to study objectivism and embrace objectivism, you've got to do it in a first-handed way, which means you have to make it yours. You have to you read Ayn Rand, and then if you pick up a principle from Ayn Rand, you learn a principle from Ayn Rand. To make it yours means you should have your own examples. You should have your own. You should be able to show why this principle is true, not just by in a sense mimicking what Ayn Rand did, but in your own words, with your own examples from your own life experience, be able to show why this is true. That's what it means to really understand it in a first-handed way and make it your philosophy. And that's what it means to be a truth seeker versus just to be, part of the objectivist, group, right? I can quote Ayn Rand, right? That's not the standard.
I think one of the things that I read once, or I don't know, I've read much of her nonfiction, was the idea that if you notice a contradiction in your mind, if you notice something that in this drawer that contradicts with the other drawer in your mind, then you need to compare the two and test them out and see which one is false, because they both can't be true.
That's right, and that's logic, right? The logic is getting rid of contradictions. So
right, many people
contradictions can't exist. So if you have a contradiction, you have to solve it. You have to get rid of it. So it's you have to reason it through, and you have to look at the facts and look at the evidence and figure out what is true and what is not. And maybe both ideas are false, right? But both ideas that contradict one another cannot be true.
Yes. And the other day on one of your shows, you talked about somebody asked you a question: how do you know that's true? And how do you know? And you answered that you know by observation. But I was thinking, yes, that's exactly right. But I was wondering how we could improve on that answer.
Well, it has to correspond to the facts, right? It has to correspond to reality, to what the facts really are. So it requires figuring out what the facts are versus what we wish them to be or what other people say they are, but what are they really? And then checking to see if the statement corresponds to the actual facts.
Right. So now if you'll explain, that is induction, isn't it? It's not deduction.
No, I mean, you need both. You need both induction and deduction. You're pushing me here into new territory. You need both. You need induction to discover new knowledge is typically inductive. But there's a lot of different things that you have to do in order to discover, in order to make something real for you. You have to be able to find the examples in reality. So you've already got a principle. You read it in Ayn Rand, and it seems true to you. But now what you have to do is what Leonard Peikoff talks about a lot is reduction. You need to reduce it to concrete. You have to reduce it to facts that you can observe and you can point to and say, see, because of this and this and this and this, that's why this is true. And then you have to take this idea, and then you have to integrate it with the rest of your knowledge and make sure it doesn't contradict anything else that you know. So
it's proper scientific methodology.
Exactly.
It's really
Yeah. Exactly. So it's not that we're going to go out there and induce knowledge. Very few people. It is the originators of new science that are engaged primarily in induction to discover new ideas. Most of us discover new ideas because we're taught those new ideas, and we're taught the concretes that made those new ideas possible. But often we're taught the new ideas, and it's our job to go find those concretes so that we are sure that it's grounded in facts and in reality.
Well, I feel fortunate to have been raised by a man who was a thinker and tried to teach without teaching us, by letting us observe and stretch the limits of our mind. You were describing your childhood the other day, and it sounds very similar to my own. And but my father was one who encouraged challenges for us and tried to make us think. But I'm just wondering if you believe, do you think that self-esteem is one of the core things that makes people want to question authority and question?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think self-esteem is crucial. I think one of the biggest problems that we have today in the world is a lack of self-esteem. And you cannot have a free society unless people have self-esteem. You're not going to get people to think for themselves unless they have self-esteem. So,
I think there
properly
needs to be
understood.
a lot more work done on that. I think there needs to be a lot of psychological work on what does create a human being with a lot of self-esteem.
I agree with you, and there needs to be that work. We need psychologists to do that work, and we need it desperately, because I think I think that the psychology of being the psychology of freedom is an important issue. There's a certain psychological requirements for people to want, to desire, to demand, and to fight for their own freedom. And unless we have
they even deserve it.
Yes, to think they deserve it. That's the core of it. That's the core self-esteem. So there's work being done. A lot more work needs to be done. I should talk more about it, and I will talk more about it. But yes, I agree with you completely. It's a lot of this is about self-esteem. Gail, thanks for calling. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate you listening and participating, and keep it up. Thanks. All right, we got one more call in. I'm just reminding the other callers there to press 1 so that I know you actually want to ask a question. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Good evening, Dr. Brook. This is Skylar.
Hey, Skylar, how's it going?
It's going well.
Good.
I want to know, of any age, is it more difficult if they're? I know that you calcify when you get older, but is it more difficult to introduce the ideas of Ayn Rand, of objectivism, or to reintroduce them? If somebody had known about Ayn Rand but then turned their back on it, and now want to come back.
I think reintroducing it is hard. If somebody's turned their back on it, I think it's very hard to change their minds because they've already made a psychological commitment to move away. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I think it's hard. I think it's to introduce, and I don't, look, I think there's a certain element of calcification. It's not so much calcification in terms of physical terms, but in terms of psychological. Right. The older we get, the more committed we are to the ideas that we've had to that point, and the longer we're committed, the harder it is to change. But I've known people who read Ayn Rand in their 70s and certainly in their 30s and 40s and 50s, and who've changed their minds or have adopted this philosophy. So it's possible. It's just more likely to do with somebody who's young.
Absolutely.
All right. That makes sense?
Yes, sir. Thank you again.
Thanks, Skylar. All right. Let's see how we're doing on time here. All right. We got a couple of more questions, and then I've got a few other topics I want to talk about. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear you.
Is this Daniel?
Hello? Daniel? Is that you?
Hello?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just want to say, I first listened to you on the Rubin Report, and I was a Catholic, and I was involved with my church group, and you completely changed my whole opinion on that. But
oh, wow. Well, your parents must love me.
Yeah, no, I don't talk to them about it.
All right.
But, no, you completely changed my life. But I was wondering, so you talked about the voluntary tax system.
Yes.
And then I forgot what founding fathers said it, but one said that the price of living in a civilized society is paying through taxes. And then I was wondering what you'd think about a low flat tax of, let's say, 5%, and then a voluntary tax system after that. Because if I was paying in a low, if I was living in a voluntary tax system, I'd be concerned of the way that the government distributes, like the police, because I feel like the police would be less inclined to police less funded communities than the ones that were funding them.
Yeah, but that's not clear because it's the incentive of those, let's say, the rich neighborhoods, to have the police in the poor neighborhoods, because otherwise the crime will be exported into the rich neighborhoods. I understand your concern, and I think it's an issue. But I think what will actually happen is that the government will publish a rate, let's say it's 5%, and say, we've done the calculations, and this is kind of what we need. Above and beyond that, we would use that money to, build another aircraft carrier or something. But this is the basic stuff. This is what we need, 5%, 7%, something like that. And I think that people would pay it. And it's true that people who have low income would actually be paying dollar-wise a lot less into the system than people with a lot of income. But the exact way in which it would work and the way in which we would deal with issues of people not paying it, or deal with issues of what would happen if the government doesn't raise enough revenue. I think all those issues are solvable by the people at that time, who are going to be a million times smarter than us, because they've already got there, right? They've already got to the point, like what you're saying. I mean, if there was a 5% flat tax today, and we were on the way to complete deregulation of the economy and complete economic freedom, and it was a flat tax of 5%, and then the next step was to make it voluntary. And if all we had to think about at that point was, okay, how do we make it voluntary and solve all these problems that people are raising, I think people would come up with ideas. Whereas we live today in a world where that's the least of my problems, right? I'm paying 55% of my income in taxes. I don't have the space and the time to think through all the potential ways in which the government could raise revenue and could deal with a voluntary system appropriately. I'm going to leave that to people when they get there to solve, because I don't think it's a difficult problem to solve. Do you see what I mean?
But what about no, I agree. But what do you think about the price of living in a civilized society?
I think if that's the price of living in a civilized society, you'd be happy to pay it. But what does civilized society mean? You see, my view is that civilized society means no coercion. Civilized society means that some people cannot use guns on other people. And once you give the government the ability to do that, I think you're less civilized. So yes, there is a price to living in a civilized society, and I think it's having a limited government with a police force and a military and a judiciary. And that costs money, and therefore you would pay. That is, we all want to live in a civilized society. We want it to be as civilized as humanly possible, which I think is a civilization with no coercion, no authority, no force initiated. And I think people would be happy to pay for that. Exactly for the reason you gave. That's what civilization requires.
Mm-hmm. Yep. No, I just want to end it on, I'm a 21-year-old. You, like I said, you completely changed. Wow. I was always free market, but you just gave me a better way to debate people. And I ordered a yearbook for Christmas. I asked my parents. They asked me what I wanted for Christmas. I said yearbook on free market and Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, that's fantastic. I mean, I'm jealous because you haven't read Atlas Shrugged yet. And Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah, well, I just heard of it.
Was the most powerful experience I ever had. So that's in front of you. Not that I want to set expectations too high, but hopefully you'll love it. Even if you love it just a fraction of what I loved it, you'll have a great time. So enjoy it. And it's people like you. Look, you make my day. It's because of you that I do what I do. It's callers who tell me, hey, you changed my life, that give me the energy to keep going. So thank you. Thanks for calling. Thanks for listening. And thanks for thinking, for having an open mind and thinking. All right, guys, we're going to take another quick break, and then we'll be right back.
The idea that a person ought to be selfish is so alien to our culture that when people learn that Ayn Rand upheld a morality of selfishness, they are left scratching their heads. What could Rand possibly mean? In the new course, Being Selfish, Being Happy, at ARI campus, Dr. Tara Smith discusses the crucial features of Rand's morality of selfishness, what she called rational egoism, explaining what it is not, and why it is an individual's only means of achieving sustainable happiness. Visit ARI campus today and enroll in Being Selfish, Being Happy.
All right, I second the recommendation of the course and everything else on ARI campus, so I encourage everybody to go over to ARI campus and take some of the courses. All right, we got one more caller, and then, as I said, I've got a few topics I want to talk about. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hi, my name is Sam.
Hey, Sam. How's it going?
I'm doing good. Been trying to, get into one of these Q&As with you for a long time. Really glad to finally get an answer, a question answered.
Good, good.
But basically, I've been developing a better understanding of Ayn Rand's concept of selfishness, and I've been discussing it with my friends, and I find that they believe it's selflessness that is the moral ideal, right?
Yep.
And but when I explain my the rational egoism, they tend to compromise and start to agree because I guess they understand that absolute selflessness is ingredient to self-destruction.
Yes.
But I get some resistance because some people say it's they can take selfishness, but they can't buy into self-centeredness, and they say it's the same, it's different. But that's my question. Is it not the same? Because in my life there is only one constant, which is me, right? So therefore, shouldn't I be
not
the
exactly.
center of my life?
Not exactly. So I don't consider self-centeredness as the same as being selfish, because there are more things that are constant, right? There's reality. Reality out there is a constant, right. and ultimately, the guide and the standard for your life. It's facts. It's truth. It's reality. I think. And the fact is that the world does not revolve around you, that other people, for example, don't revolve around you, that other people's values are not about you. And self-centered people think only of themselves, not in the sense of they think of how to make their life the best that it can be, which is what I think a selfish person does, is use their mind, use their reason, use their rational capabilities to figure out how to live the best life, consistent with reality, with facts, how to live the best life that they can live. See, what self-centered people do, it's a much more, at least my understanding of it, it's a much more about, I want everybody to focus on me. So they're much more likely to be narcissistic. They're much more likely to expect other people to treat them a certain way, whether they deserve it or not. So it's far more of a subjectivist and narcissistic view of the world, and can border into, a self-centered person could say, well, I don't care about other people, since I'm at the center of their universe, of the universe, it's their universe as well. I'm at the center of their universe as well. It's okay to sacrifice them to me. So I would stick with the idea of self-interest, of rational long-term self-interest, and stay away from the idea of self-centered.
All right. Yeah, I had a difficulty separating the two because, of course, when I look at the dictionary, the synonym is self-centeredness. So I'm trying to break away from the dictionary definitions, but the ones I find online anyway, because they tend to have a connotation and some bias, it seems like.
I mean, it's also the case that we should fight one battle at a time, right? And it's a hard enough battle to fight over self-interest. I don't think, even if there is some rational way to think about self-centered, I don't see what for. I mean, there's no point. The universe is not. I'm not the center of the universe in the sense that for other people, I'm not the center, right? So,
correct.
So, I would rather not fight that battle. Let's just focus on the self-interest, which is hard enough.
All right.
That makes sense.
I appreciate it, Yaron.
Great, absolutely. Thanks for calling.
All right.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
All right, let's see. And by the way, I hope next time it doesn't take you this long to get through. So anybody else want to call, you're free to call 347-324-3075. The lines now are clear. There's nobody in the queue. So I have a couple of other topics I want to talk about that relate to questions people asked. And let me do this one because it's kind of interesting. And I hadn't really thought of it. but it's interesting. So you're going to hear me thinking on my feet because I haven't really. So this is the question. It's about heroes. It's about heroes. And it's about two types of heroes. And the fact that we have a different attitude towards these two different types of heroes. And why is that? So here's the way the person asked it. I can't remember who asked it, so I apologize. We have different emotions regarding heroes who help others and got nothing material in return. So somebody like Oskar Schindler, who saved thousands of Jews, not for material gain. We have a special kind of feeling towards somebody like that. We venerate somebody like that in a particular way. On the other hand, when it comes to somebody like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates, we admire them, we appreciate them, we are thankful for the products they produce, but it's not the same feeling as we do for like an Oskar Schindler or for, war hero or for I don't know, somebody who fights, and one of the good guys who's fighting for freedom, fighting for the right cause, for justice or something like that. So it got me thinking because that is true. Certainly as a culture that is true, but I think even for most, I think for myself, it's a different quality of emotion. And the question is is that right? Right? Because one has to question whether that makes sense, whether one should view heroes of one type differently from the other type. And let's think about what the two types are, right? More clearly. So heroes are people who face great odds in pursuit of values, right? Heroes who achieve things in spite of great odds that are placed in front of them. But if the odds are such that, let's say it's not life-threatening, and what they're achieving is a positive value, in a sense of they're not facing evil. They're just facing obstacles. It's just difficult. Like, I would say Reardon is heroic, is a hero in developing Reardon metal, Reardon steel. The obstacles are amazing. He works incredibly hard. He dedicates and devotes himself for it. He's a heroic character. Dagny is heroic, not just in dealing with the immorality of James and everybody else, but in just dealing with solving problems and working hard in constructing the John Galt line in spite of the odds, in spite of the obstacles, which are not necessarily, armed people in front of her so there's that kind of heroism, right? And then there's the heroism of he saved my life, or they fought and to prevent tyranny, or Oskar Schindler, who saved the lives of people from the Nazis. So one is kind of the achievement of value by standing up to evil, and the achievement of value. A value that should not need protecting, in a sense, right? Life is life. You have a right to your life. Nobody has a right to take it away from you. And the need to exert effort to fight off evil people. It's sad that such effort needs to be exerted. It's tragic that so much human energy has gone into trying to fight off evil, like the communists or the Nazis or people like that, right? So there is a different quality of that versus just the heroism that's just entailed in facing reality and striving towards achievement and creating positive values. So there certainly seems to be, but I don't see why. And it's true that in our culture, like fighting the Nazis is everything, right? That's real heroism. That's real heroes. All our heroes. In all our movies, in our literature, in our songs, in our poems, all those kind of heroes. Now, I think there are two reasons for that. One is that through most of human history, we've had a struggle just to stay alive. And life, the right to life, was something that had to be really fought for. We're pretty spoiled today. But for most of human history, for overwhelming majority of human history, so that most of our heroes throughout human history were not about pursuing the positive stuff, creating weird and metal, because nobody had time to do that. You were just struggling to survive. And then the heroes were the people who gave you time in order to survive. So most of our mythology, most of our past is really about heroism that involves saving our lives so that we can live, period. And there was no time to create great values. I mean, we still think in terms of heroism on somebody like Galileo, but even there, the heroism comes more from the fact that he was going to be persecuted by these evil bastards, right? It wasn't just him and just the struggle to discover truth. It was him and the Catholic Church, and it's the Catholic Church, that enemy, that evil that he had to stand up to, that makes his efforts heroic. So many of our heroes in the pre-modern era, and what I consider modernity is the beginning of the 19th century. That's when the modern times start. In the pre-modern era, so much of the heroism was just to keep us alive. I think that's one reason. The other reason is altruism, right? Altruism. Heroism is about, if you ask most people, it's about sacrificing for other people. It's about doing stuff for others. So even though the heroism of von Oskar Schindler, I think, is selfish, is self-interested, it's not altruistic. He's fighting for the value of life, which he values. And he can't live with himself if he is not going to protect life. Because then what does that mean about his own life? It's not worthy of protection. So it's Oskar Schindler is a real hero, but he's not a sacrificial hero. He is a self-interested hero. He's a selfish hero, an egoist. But he also fits into the altruistic story, because the altruists have embraced all these people in the name of, oh no, they sacrificed, they took a risk, they didn't get anything material in return, and the altruists are very materialistic. So for them, it's getting something in return has to be material. We are not materialists. So for me, there are lots of things you get in return. Fighting for your values, what you get is the spiritual knowledge that you fought for your values, the self-esteem that comes from that, even if you get nothing material in return. So the altruists embrace these heroes as well, so therefore they become popular and common, and we're raised on them, and our childhood is filled with them. And nothing in our childhood presents, at least I can't remember anywhere in my childhood, where heroes are presented as the Reardons, the Steve Jobses, the people who create great things. We're just not conditioned to think of people like that as heroes, because again, the definition of heroes has always been through the lens of the altruists. And they're embraced, even though Schindler's not an altruist, they embrace Schindler as an altruist because it fits into their story. It fits into their way of thinking of the world. So I think that's why we have different emotions with regard, but should we? No. And you know, we should venerate the Steve Jobses of the world and the Reardons of the world just as much as we venerate the people who save other people's lives. And in some ways more so, because in many respects, the great innovators, the great industrialists save more people's lives. Save more people's lives. Think of the benefits that they provide to humanity, that they provide to the world. And they get very little in return in comparison to the great benefits that they provide. So I don't think the differences should be there. All right, we are going to take a quick break. When I come back, I see that people have called in. I'm just reminding you that if you want to ask a question, you have to press 1 in order for me to know that you are on the line.
The Ayn Rand Archives has more than 1,500 photographs of Ayn Rand, her life, and her work. Become an ARI monthly sustainer today, and you are eligible to receive the Ayn Rand photo series every month. These high-quality reproductions, each with historical anecdotes provided by the archives, will be shipped to you in a protective sleeve and are suitable for framing or for collecting in a photo album. Becoming an ARI monthly sustainer is the most convenient way to contribute. Your automated monthly gift of just $25, that's less than $1 per day, helps to sustain our vital programs and qualifies you to receive the Ayn Rand photo series. When your first monthly contribution is made, you'll receive the first set of 2 photos. Then for as long as you contribute, at least $25 a month, you'll receive an additional set of 2 photos each month. For residents outside of the United States, a monthly donation of $50 is required to receive the photo series. Signing up is quick and easy. Just go to AynRand.org/donate and look for the link at the bottom of the page to become an ARI sustainer.
Yeah, definitely going, this is the season. Go contribute to ARI. I'm hoping that everybody who listens to the show, all 10,000 of you, go before the end of the year and make a contribution to ARI. And also, I might add, make a contribution to the Yaron Brook Show, to this show on Patreon.com. You can go on Patreon.com. $2 a month. That's you can do $1 a month. So anybody, student, everybody can afford $1 a month, $2 a month. It both reinvigorates me to see you make contributions, and it makes it possible for the show to exist. I mean, it's the money that I got from the Patreon that allowed me to buy the new gizmo that has improved the sound quality and the volume. And it's going to be the money that we raise through Patreon that's going to allow us to market the show to thousands of new people and many other goodies that are coming down the road, more shows, greater production value, videos, all kinds of things. But it depends on your support. Without your support, none of that is going to happen. All right, let me just say something about the heroism, which I think is important. One of the crucial reasons why I think we should orient our heroism actually more towards the heroes of the mind, the heroes who are creating science, creating material well-being, creating ideas. Those are the heroes we should really, really venerate. Is because there's an extent to which each one of us can be heroic in that sense. It's unlikely that most of us are going to be in the battlefield and have the opportunity to help save somebody's life or to be in a situation like Oskar Schindler. I hope none of us is ever in that situation. But it is possible for every one of us to really live, to face the challenges that life presents to us, to overcome them, to make the most of our life, to live a heroic life. I think everybody can live a heroic life. We need role models for that. And I think if we focus our role models instead of on the Schindlers, I'm not saying don't learn about Schindler, don't admire Schindler, but focus more on the positive stories, on the Thomas Jeffersons and Ben Franklins and somebody's listed here, Thomas Edison and Houdini and Ayn Rand. If we focus on people like that and what they overcame, then it's much easier to apply it to our own lives. Because we can all do that in our own lives. We can all live those kind of lives within the context of our own ability and the framework of our own life. So that's the sense in which I think it's more important actually to focus on that type of heroism than the other. All right, I see my question board is lit up again, so we got a bunch of people wanting to ask questions again. So we're going to go through that. Remember, you have to press 1 for me to take your call. So, hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Hello.
Hello?
Yep, go ahead.
So I was also wondering what you thought about when businesses collude with other businesses. Like, I just got done reading the book of The Rise of Big Business, and they made it seem like all these businesses were colluding together, which ultimately disrupted competitive activities.
Yeah, so
and I was kind of wondering what you thought about that.
So I think collusion is bad business practice, but I don't think should be illegal. I think that collusion it reduces the fun of doing business. It reduces the competitive juices of doing business. It reduces the inspiration for the businessman, and it ultimately is self-destructive and self-defeating. I would be suspicious of a book called about big business, because I think very few writers understand economics and look at history objectively. I would encourage you to read books by Robert Folsom. And again, I'm forgetting the name of the book about Michigan entrepreneurs. If somebody on the chat can remind me. Stuart, I think last time Stuart popped up the answer to that. But where he describes how Dow Chemical completely defeated the cartel, the German cartel in chemicals and stuff like that. So I think collusion is something that businesses shouldn't do, but I don't think government has any business in restricting it, because nobody, there's no violation of rights. Collusion doesn't violate anybody's rights. You don't have a right to compete. Does that answer your question?
Well, I could agree more. Yeah, no, I absolutely agree.
Okay.
But it was interesting because I had to read this book for
I
one
can
of my
imagine.
college courses.
Yep.
And it's interesting because I'd never hear the other side. I always hear about the socialist, communists. So it's pretty interesting. And then one time in the book, it said that collusion with businesses never worked in the long run.
It doesn't.
It end up always collapsing.
That's right. So
yeah,
why do it? So I would encourage businessmen never to do it. The book is called Empire Builders by Budden Folsom. Empire Builders by Budden Folsom. It's a small book. It won't take you long to read. And it's fabulous. It is so much fun.
What is it?
Empire Builders. And his name is Burton, Burton, Folsom, Folsom. And he's got another book, same author, called The Myth of the Robber Barons. The Myth of the Robber Barons. And look, collusion and cartels never work. So why do it? It's not in your self-interest to do it. And it's driven out of the marketplace very, very quickly. All right. Thanks for the call. And keep reading. Read those two books I recommended. They're really, really good. And I recommend it to everybody, listening. All right, let's see. Again, if you're calling in, press 1 so that I know you want to ask a question. Hi, anyone? Whoops. The guy disappeared. So somebody was in, it pressed 1, and now is gone. So come back or press 1 again or do something because you've disappeared. There's somebody in the 313 area code. Are you there to ask a question? Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Are you there to ask a question? Hello? 313 area code. Hello? All right, nothing.
What's happening?
You there?
What?
I can hear you. All right, he doesn't want to ask anything. Okay, I repeat, if you call in 347-324-3075, 347-324-3075, and you want to ask a question, press 1 on your phone. You press the 1, and then it appears here that you want to ask a question. You're not just listening to the show on your phone, which some people do. All right, let's see. I had one other issue that I wanted to cover, I think. Where is it? Oh, yeah. Again, a question somebody sent in, and then I'm going to give you my television recommendation, and then we're going to call it a night. We've got one more question. Now, let me take this, and then we'll do the issue I had. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hey, Yaron. This is Nicholas. How are you?
I'm good. How about you?
Good. Pretty good.
What's up?
I am calling from Blacksburg. I'm actually from Costa Rica.
Okay, excellent.
I wanted to ask a question about, I know that you have talked about this before, a little bit, about the role of cynicism, the cynicism has in shaping the current political environment and certainly the future political environment. I have found out that here in the U.S. There's a lot of people with a lot of cynicism about how things are going on right now. So, and I think that is something negative, that people adopt that attitude. And I was just wondering, why do you think that happens?
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you. It's very bad. It's and it leads to bad consequences. And I think it's a consequence of people having given up on their idealism. And usually because their idealism is either of kind of in politics, a socialist idealism or an altruist idealism or a religious idealism. And since it doesn't work because it's anti-reality, it's anti-fact, it's anti-reason, since it doesn't work, since it fails them, what happens is they give up on idealism generally. They give up on idealism completely. And as a consequence, they become cynical. And they put down anybody who is idealistic. And they put down anybody who is principled. And they don't want to talk about principles. And they don't care about principles. And they become complete pragmatists, short-term thinkers, and focused only on kind of what works in the short term. And I think it's destructive for them personally, because I think they live unhappy lives. And it's destructive culturally and socially because they vote for politicians who are cynical. They vote for politicians who are unprincipled. They vote for people like Obama or Trump or Clinton, who are all pragmatic to some extent or another. Nothing, no principle. And they make fun of people like us because we're idealists. How ridiculous is that? So the real existential consequence for all of us is cynicism is a real enemy and a real devil out there in terms of its destructive, it's a destructive attitude.
Yeah, I agree completely with you. And it's interesting for me because this is a worldwide phenomenon. I mean, right now in Costa Rica, we have general elections next February, and there's a candidate that he's playing like to be kind of a Trump-alike candidate, and people are just cynical. It's like, we don't care. We are going to vote for this guy, and even though.
But think about it. Everything's failed. Think about it. Everything they've been taught has failed. Socialism failed. When people came in Latin American companies saying we've got free market reforms, we're on the right. That failed. Every time somebody has come and pretended or actually held a principle, they have failed because they've all held bad principles, or when they held a decent principle, they they undercut it and didn't live up to the principle. And so everything's failed, and particularly if you're in Latin America, it's like, yeah, we've tried everything and nothing works. So what the hell? Let's do Donald Trump. What can we lose? It can't get worse than it is. Yeah. And I think...
Well, we haven't tried freedom yet.
Exactly. And the problem is that too many people who advocate for freedom are not really for freedom. And therefore, when they get elected and they fail, freedom gets blamed. And there are not enough of us who are idealists with regard to freedom and who can go out there and make the case for it. But this is why you got to get young people who are still willing to be idealistic, who are not yet cynical. You see, cynicism is something that particularly grows with age. That's why so many young people are socialists, because they still want ideals. They still want to believe in something. When they're older, they don't. It's not that they drop the socialism. It's not that they embrace freedom. What they embrace is cynicism, because socialism obviously doesn't work, so nothing works. What we need to present them when they're young is, hey, look, you're an idealist. Here's some really good ideals that work in reality, ideals that are fantastic. Come join us in our idealistic battle. That's the message we need to convey.
Thank you very much for taking my call, and sure. I really appreciate your show and the work that you do.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for listening. And it's great to see how this is becoming and is and becoming an international phenomenon. I mean, we've already got a call from Cambridge. We got a call from, well, he's not calling from Costa Rica, but he's from Costa Rica. And, you know, we've gotten calls from all over the world on this show, and I get questions from all over the world. And that's inspiring. It's inspiring to see how this is becoming an international phenomenon. And hopefully we can grow this and turn it into an international movement. And by contributing to the Ayn Rand Institute or contributing on Patreon to the Yaron Brook Show, you will help make this a real international movement. All right, another quick break, and then I've got another 3
At AynRand.org, find out what the Ayn Rand Institute is doing to bring honesty and reason to the way we all deal with each other, the way countries should act toward each other. And if you're curious, at AynRand.org, you can learn about Objectivism, Ayn Rand's philosophy, which says your life belongs to you, and it's your right to live it for your own sake. Philosophy? Who needs it? You do. Find out more about the Ayn Rand Institute at AynRand.org. That's AYNRAND.org.
All right, so let us take the next question. You're on the Yaron Brook Show. Hi, who's this? Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, hey. Hey, thanks for taking my call.
Sure.
My question, it's not very political or philosophical. It's about music, if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Go ahead. I'm not sure I can answer it, but you can ask.
So you said several times that you really like Beethoven.
Yes.
And that's correct, right?
Yep.
And Rand said that she hated Beethoven and said that his music was malevolent.
Yes.
And there were a lot of other composers that she described as like, you can just hear the malevolence in their music, like the evil in their music, like Bach or Mozart.
Yep.
My question is, why do you like Beethoven? Why do you disagree with her? And do you think she was wrong or right? Or what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I understand what she's saying about Beethoven, because Beethoven, his music, the essential characteristic of most of his music, not all of it, but most of it, is conflict. He makes conflict metaphysically important. Let me repeat that. Beethoven makes conflict metaphysically important. And for Ayn Rand, conflict is not metaphysically important. And she would view an attitude that said that conflict as metaphysically important is malevolent. It's a negative view of the world. It's like the world is always battling each other, versus the romantic music she liked, like Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff, which is much more positive. It's benevolent. The world is good. There's not this constant clash of forces. Beethoven's about a clash of forces. Now, I guess, now I agree with her. She's right. Beethoven is, in that sense, malevolent, and he does make conflict a metaphysical issue. Because remember, art is a recreation of the artist's metaphysical value judgments. So Beethoven is making conflict central to his ideas about the world, about reality. Now, I sympathize with that, with Beethoven. So it's an element maybe of malevolence in me, right? I, in a sense, thrive on the conflict. If you've ever seen me in a debate, or if you've ever seen me with students who are asking obnoxious questions, right? I like the conflict. I engage in the conflict. I live the conflict. I am, every day of my life, in a sense, engaged in a massive worldwide conflict about ideas, about philosophies. And everybody disagrees with me. And I find Beethoven reflecting that back at me, in a sense, inspiring and energizing, right? Yes, Beethoven gets it, and I think in Beethoven the good guys win, but he gets it, and yeah, he fills me with energy. I get energized, and I have a personality like that. It's my personality, because I've always liked Beethoven, and I think it's always been about that. I get off on the conflict. I mean, I enjoy it. So I think, this is my best interpretation of my response to Beethoven and my best interpretation of why she thought he was malevolent. But now I'm not going to comment on Mozart, who I don't think is malevolent, but she had other problems with Mozart and Bach. I don't think it was their malevolence. I thought she thought their music was fairly primitive. It just didn't convey the scope of emotion that the Romantic era did.
Oh, okay.
That was, I think, her problem with it.
Do you like any pre-classical or earlier music, or do you agree with her and just think it's boring?
I like both. I like Mozart. I like certain of his operas. They're just magnificent. They're so just beautiful. Some of his piano concertos are just gorgeous. I mean, they're just so pretty. I find some of his other music a little more boring. I enjoy Vivaldi. I enjoy a lot of types of music. But if I was going to sit down and actually listen to music seriously, it would be Beethoven and on. It would be Beethoven or Schubert or Schumann or Brahms or Tchaikovsky or Rachmaninoff or even Mahler, if I'm in a really malevolent mood. There's just anybody post Beethoven is more interesting, in my view, than anybody pre-Beethoven, although I enjoy listening to pre-Beethoven music as well.
Okay, well,
right.
Hey, thanks again.
My pleasure. Thank you. Thanks for calling. Thanks for asking a question out of the box, which I enjoy. All right. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hello?
Hey, yep.
Is that me? No?
Yep, it's you.
Okay. I most of the time listen to your things, not real time.
Okay.
And so the last show, there was a caller from Oregon, a student, who was having a painful time with all his friends. That we tried to introduce him to, he thought Ayn Rand was so great, and this was really good stuff.
Yeah.
And he met with failure in trying to talk to them. And I just wanted to say that I find you have to try to take what you can from people.
I agree.
In that people are very compartmentalized, and they're very general and sincere people. And the fact that they're all screwed up in terms of religion doesn't, you just say, I guess I know I can't talk to them there, but let me get the enjoyment that I can from them.
Yeah, but that's...
So I'm just saying...
Yeah, no, I agree with that, but there's a limit to that, right? Because there's a limit, because you can only be so close to somebody when you know that certain topics are off the table. And suddenly, at some point, and there's certain people with certain views that you just can't tolerate and you just can't do it. So I agree with you. You got to get what you can out of people, and you got to share the values that you can share with them. But my friends changed. When my ideas changed, my friends changed. And I walked away from a lot of friendships because it wasn't fun anymore. It was too butting heads. There was too many things off the table that I couldn't discuss. And they would make offhand remarks that I knew I didn't want to argue with them on, but I just got me upset, and it just wasn't worth being around them because of that. So it's a combination of both. It's you got to find the best people and get the best out of them, but you can't also give up on the idea of real friendship where you can talk about anything and you can really be close to somebody. And for that, you need to look for new friends. And I encourage people to look for new friends.
Yeah, I understand. I still want to say that you get into a mindset where when these things come up, you're immediately opposed to them and you're getting angry. And you've got to let that go. For example, in the workplace, there's people that you actually are good people. I mean, are intelligent, and they do good work, and they hold lousy ideas.
Yeah,
and you got to get their good work.
Yeah, you got to get the good work, but
you don't have a choice with the people that you work with in some ways.
Yeah, but do I want to hang out with them and talk about ideas with them? No. But there might be somebody who really likes Beethoven like I do, and they would be great to go to a Beethoven concert with. And as long as we just talked about Beethoven music, they would be great. But I don't want to talk to them about, about other things. So, yes, I agree with the general sentiment that you're expressing, and that is, you can't let your philosophy completely isolate you from everybody else who's going to disagree with you. I agree.
Okay. I just wanted that. I felt like somebody should say that to that kid in Oregon. That's what I wanted to say.
I thought I said some of that, but I can't just say that, because I also have to say, because I know that he's never going to find real friends, really close friends, if they disagree on important things. So I would say, when you discover new ideas, you should also go out and look for new friends. Not abandon everybody.
That's probably true.
But look for new friends as well.
I mean, you're going to have the same problem with your family. That's what I'm saying, too.
Yeah, and I walked away from my family, and I have no problem with people walking away. To me, families are even more disposable than friends. But, you gotta, I moved 7,000 miles away from my family because I didn't want to deal with them. That's not the reason I moved, but that was a added benefit to it. And my family's very nice. There's nothing wrong with my family. The problem is that the family, in a Jewish Italian kind of sense, and I wasn't interested. So I don't venerate family. I venerate friendship much more than family. All right, I'm going to take one more caller, and then we're going to call it quits here, I think. Otherwise, we're going to go all night. Hi, you're on the Yaron Brook Show. Who's this?
Hi, this is Al.
Hey, Al, how's it going?
Going well. Hey, the point you made a few callers back about saying that these idealists feel that freedom failed them.
Yep.
What really failed them is their understanding of the concept of freedom.
Yes.
Because obviously they don't have the right concept. Because a lot of times when you talk about freedom, somebody will say something along the lines of, well, a hungry man isn't free.
Yes.
And it's like, well, no, he's not free from reality. Because, obviously you have to do something in order to provide for yourself, in order to get food and all this. And so to me, their idea of freedom is being free from the requirements of life and being able to just do whatever and have all their
whims satisfied, all their desires satisfied, free of the consequence, or free of the cost of what it means. Absolutely. You're absolutely right.
Of course, it's all a consequence of a bad education system that never taught them how to think and past the point of emotion.
Yes, and the point I was making was that if you hold that kind of emotional response, and then it doesn't work out, then you're going to give up on the ideal that you were striving for, whether it's freedom or socialism or religion or whatever. You're going to become cynical about the world because your ideals did not work. But your ideals were flawed because they were wrong. They were wrong. The ideals were wrong. That's why they didn't work.
It's sad that they don't have this proper idea of the concept of freedom or rights and a lot of other stuff.
Absolutely.
It's tragic. Also, I did want to bring up one other thing from your last show where you talked about Apple and the fact that Apple won't allow this Chow Now to put up a platform app on their App Store.
Yep.
And the reason why they won't do that is actually for security reasons. Apple vets every single app that gets put on
I think that's right.
Their website.
Yeah. My point though is broader that it doesn't matter why. It's their platform. They get to decide.
Yeah. Exactly. But they vet everyone to make sure that it's secure.
Yeah.
Well, Chow Now puts this platform out there, and other people can put apps on it, then Apple won't necessarily be able to vet those apps that they put on that Chow Now platform. And so what they're doing is they're trying to make, Apple is very strict about that because they want to make sure that their phone is as secure as possible. And shouting out with putting a platform out there for other people to put different apps on would, possibly disrupt their security measures.
Okay, cool. I agree with you. I think you're absolutely right. Thanks for the call. Really appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking around. We've got one other call at 773. If you want to ask a question, you have to press 1. Otherwise, I can't take your call. So if you want to ask a question, press 1. Otherwise, I'm going to go on. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then when I come back, I'm going to give you my TV series recommendation from Netflix.
If you're interested in going deeper into objectivism, ARI Campus's new advanced course, Objectivism Through Induction, answers central questions about several key values of Ayn Rand's revolutionary philosophy. Originally given by Leonard Peikoff in 1997, the course teaches you the method of learning objectivism's principles that Rand used to discover them. According to Dr. Peikoff, Objectivism Through Induction is the best way I know of tying your ideas to reality and acquiring a real understanding of objectivism. Visit ARI Campus today to enroll.
All right, as I said, go to campus and take the courses, particularly Leonard Peikoff's courses, but all the courses there. Definitely, if you really want to understand objectivism, those courses are invaluable to your understanding. All right, we used to have a tradition on these shows for me to end with a positive value, some aesthetic value. We talked a little bit about Beethoven, but I was rewatching a TV show yesterday. It's at least the second time I've watched it. I watched it when it first came out years and years ago. Well, not that long ago, 2000 first came out, and it was one of my favorite shows of all time then. And I just watched this first 2 episodes yesterday, and it's rare that a show actually causes me to laugh out loud. And no American comedy actually caused me to do that. I mean, once in a while, something that what's his name, Larry David says in Curb Your Enthusiasm will make me laugh. But half the time I'm just sitting there saying, what, why? And once in a while I'll laugh, and some of the times I'm smiling. But this show, I'm laughing all the time. And now that could be because I'm a little weird and a little crazy. But and let me just say, if you're a Puritan in any sense, if you don't like humor that revolves around sex, then don't watch the show, because this show primarily the humor revolves around sex and around relationships, and it's hysterical. I could criticize the show. It has a pretty lousy perspective on men, and there is no male character that you respect on the show, and the one good guy is pretty passive, and the women are the aggressors sexually and otherwise. But the show is I think, so funny. And I thought I'd just share it with you. It's a show called Coupling. It's a British show from, I think there were 4 seasons from 2000 to 2004. I think the last season wasn't as good, but I'm rewatching the whole show now on Netflix. It's on Netflix. You can get it there. So if you have a subscription, you can get it for free. It's called Coupling. It's one of the funniest things ever. I think you should try it. I think you'll enjoy it. I hope you enjoy it. Some of you will enjoy it. Some of you will hate it. Some of you will literally hate it. I've got at least one good friend who can't stand the show, and what he really hates about it is that his wife loved it, and he hated it. Well, anyway, it's a Stephen Moffat is the creator, is the writer. He's one of the best writers in British television in the last 20 years. He's excellent, and it's hysterical. It really is. It really is funny. Now, again, I'm warning you, very explicit. Most of the jokes are about sex. Most of it is about sex. A lot of it's about differences between men and women. It's hysterical. Yes, it's the same Stephen Moffat as the Doctor Who writer. You want me to tell you my Doctor Who story? All right, so we're going to end on Doctor Who, because I can't stand that show and will not watch it. And here's the reason why. And so Doctor Who, this is, you can click off now. You don't have to hear this. This is my embarrassing Doctor Who story. So when I was a little kid, Doctor Who, the original Doctor Who in black and white, would play on television in England when I lived in England. And little black and white television. But it was a pretty revolutionary show at the time. It was science fiction on television. And my parents wouldn't allow me to watch it. And I used to sneak down the stairs and watch it from afar. And I used to get the worst nightmares from that show ever. It scared the bejesus out of me. I mean, I was so terrified from the show, the original Doctor Who. And I was, how old was I? This was probably, I don't know, I was probably 6, 7. And this is the only television. I came from Israel, and Israel didn't have television in those days. So the first kind of television I saw was sneaking and watching Doctor Who from the staircase. And nightmares and just horrible memories. And for years, I said, I hate Doctor Who. I can't watch it. It's the scariest thing in the world. I've never seen anything scarier. And then when I moved to the U.S. and I was living in Austin, one of my friends was a big Doctor Who fan, and I said, how can you watch it? It's so scary. It's awful. I hate it. I hate horror movies, and I hate Doctor Who. And he said, you got to be kidding. It's not that scary. And I said, no, it is. And he said, you got to watch it. So he showed me some episodes from the 1960s of Doctor Who. And of course, because the special effects were so pathetic, that as an adult, it was ridiculous. It wasn't scary at all. There was nothing scary about it. I mean, I still couldn't watch it though, because I would literally get a physical reaction to seeing it on the screen. But it looked pathetic, and I was pathetic by responding that way to it because it was black and white with really bad special effects. And then, so years after that, somebody at the Institute said, oh, no, you got to watch the new, the ones written by Stephen Moffat, because I'm a Stephen Moffat fan. And I said, okay, I'll give Doctor Who another chance. And he gave me this CD with Doctor Who on it, an episode by Stephen Moffat. And if it was not one of the spookiest, scariest things I've ever seen in my life, and it reinforced everything that terrified me as a kid. And it was like, no, I don't want to watch this. I hate scary movies. I don't want to. So anyway, that's my Doctor Who story. I don't know if it was worth staying on to hear that, but what the hell. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening. Thanks for following. Don't forget to go to Patreon and make a contribution, even if it's small. I really value anything you can give. I just value having right now. There are about, I think, 202 patrons. That should be 1,000. Well, it should be millions, but 1,000 would be great. I need every one of you to do it so I can get to 1,000, or ultimately to get to 5,000 and 10,000, because every single one of you should be giving a little bit of money to support the values that you're getting from the show. I mean, where else are you going to get personal Doctor Who stories? That's worth $2 a month, just that. All right. Thanks, everybody. Talk to you soon. Bye.